Here's an idea of different rigs that I use.
Oh shit, yeah. Let's see. Okay.
If you follow them all, you know what they're doing.
I'll take one of these.
This is how they should be presented, some of these rigs. So, we're going to go back to start with this. Nantucket shoals. Each of these go anywhere from 2 feet to 6, 7 feet up. A lot of people fish the shoals wrong. They fish steady and low to the bottom. I found an effective rig where you tie it, the first poison tail, 14 to 16 inches off the bottom. The second one almost 2 to 3 feet. Now you're up in the air, and as you're drifting, these fish, as you can see, are coming through after all the bait coming through. They're laying up on the shoals. So if you're already dragging the sand, they're going to bypass that. Majority of the time, they just... Now, if they see that coming over the hump, what are they going to do? But you got to compensate for these humps and the swirls. I don't know if anybody ever fished Nantucket shoals.
Going up and down too.
Majority of the time, it could, but the shoals are going up and down more than anything.
Right.
You know, so you want to bring your rigs higher.
FLUKE?
Yes. Yes. I fished Nantucket shoals this year on Saturday. I had 27 fish, 9.5 pounds to 7 pounds. Majority of my fish were 8 pounds.
What rig?
I stood with a poison tail all day. Little poison tail all day until the current got strong. After the current got strong, I went to a 3-way. So, if anybody knows what a poison tail rig is, this is your common, and white happens to work very good. This is your common poison tail rig.
I love that.
Kenny, do you have the information for the guy that makes those?
Dominic, yeah.
Dominic and Michael Lang.
Anybody wants his number, I can give it to you.
Michael Lang and Dominic.
Wow, that's far apart.
I don't know either one.
This is a shoals rig. This is not your normal fluke rig what people use.
No dropper loops, right?
They're made out of dropper loops.
I know, but they're cut.
I sometimes cut them, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
It all depends on the day. Bucktailing at this time of year, June, is not worth it. Look at the difference of that, how high it is. You're compensating for the shoals. So if anybody ever gets to the shoals, this is one thing you want to think about. You know, you're pretty high. Not like you used to. You know, and all you got to do is light. And just be careful. So this would kind of be what I use for Nantucket shoals. There's my 2 dropper loops, and you're basically just bringing it across. The other thing is backbone. You want a pole not too light for Nantucket or any ocean fishing. People make a big mistake, use light rods for the ocean. When you're hunting big fish and you try to set a hook on a big fish, you don't set that hook at all. You want to have a good action on your tip, but you want to have backbone to your pole. So, see the backbone here, but you see the tip? Look at that. Pull that. Pull that sinker. You can run.
Yeah, I can't hide.
Not a tuna.
So, the fast action tip with a good backbone is where you're going to set a good hook step, because you're going to pop it up. Bigger fish, a lot of guys lose because they don't properly set a hook on those big fish. Their mouths are tremendous and strong. It ain't like you're catching an 18, 19-inch fish anymore. If you follow what I'm saying, make sure your hooks are sharp. If your hooks are not sharp, it's going to just stay in the mouth, in the skin, and that's why you see multiple guys always lose their fish on top of the water once they get it up. Other problem is a lot of guys stop. You get a good fish to the top of your water,
Oh, yeah.
you got to keep swimming that fish. Keep the pressure on his mouth. 90% of the time we see guys make the mistake, they stop and wait for the net. Wrong move. How many guys see that fish go, psh? Do not stop. Call for the net. Call for the net premature. Now, you and that netter have to make sure you're on the same page. I'm bringing his head around. Get the net ready. You bring that fish into the net. Do not wait for that guy to swing that net. You guide that net into that fish into that net. This way, it's a done deal. Majority of guys lose fish like that because they're waiting for the net. No. You swim that fish.
Well, they're trying to pull it out of the water.
Yeah. Well, I call that do it live. When I set my fish, if it's a good fish, I'll do it live. Right over. I have no problem. I know it's a good hook set majority of the time.
Well, that's why you need the backbone rod.
That's basically where it goes. I mean, that's pretty much how I fish Nantucket. Skin. I like to use fresh skin. 6-8 inch strips. You would go with 6-inch gulp. On that, there's rigs for that. So this is what I call a gulp rig. It's made for gulp.
Sure.
So in other words, there's 2 dropper loops. There's your hook. There's your bottom. Now, the key is with the gulp hook, it's a 6-0 bait holder. You could slide that gulp all the way up here to get to the end of the tail, where the tail starts right there, the end of the body, and you stick it out. I also custom the hooks. I take that bend out of them and I bend it out a little bit because most hooks are made to gut hook, not to gut hook a fish. But if you know what you're doing, you're not going to gut hook him. You're going to slap that and you're going to slice that hook right to his throat. You know, that's another thing I do. I custom them a little bit, bend it out. Big, you know, there's a big difference. Yes, you see me. I've done it for you. So, other presentations are your spoon rig. That's a good rig to use on heavy current. I don't know if anybody ever used a spoon rig. 0.2 knots of current, and you're not moving. They're going to put a spoon on. Next thing you know, they're tangling everybody. You need a 1/2 knot or better to run one of these. You know, and this is the best way to do it. Your 3-way. This way you keep it off the bottom. Another big mistake Fluke members make is they tie the rig and it goes right to the way, and now they drag in sand and bottom. That's why you lose your rig in 2 seconds. I bring it up 12, 16 inches on the 3-way. You use at least an 8 or 10 ounce sinker to hold it flat. And this is something that's going to flutter now. Flutter in the wind. And it's not going to get caught. But now you're not going to use this on like a rocky bottom. Semi-smooth, you know? Where if you're off the, you know, you're right off the reef, the edge of the reef, where it goes nice and flat. That's where you're going to want to spool these, depending on your drift. This is a great rig when you want. I've seen big fish caught on this, but a lot of guys use this wrong too, because they go right to the bottom with the clip, with the sinker. Anything you're dragging is not the right way to do it. There's no presentation in your bait. There's no presentation in your action. Nothing. It's just doing this in the sand. And if you don't have the current for this, where it gives you that flutter, don't even bother using it yet. Follow me?
Follow you.
I'm just asking. Bucktailing. Who likes bucktailing? Inside, outside bucktail. We do inside first. So when you're fishing shallow inshore bay, here's light bucktails. 1/2 ounce, 3/4 of an ounce. And this is inside bay. 20, 30 feet of water. You could go up to an ounce. You can go out up to 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces. You want to go up no more than 2 ounces inside. And this is a simple bucktail rig. Plain hook on top. Sometimes you can put a teaser, make it look prettier. But, you know, this is the same thing.
Are you fishing that right on the bottom? Or?
This one is for inside bucktailing, like in sandy areas, coming off the beaches and stuff.
How about where it's weedy?
Where? So where it's weedy, I would go right to a chicken rig again, a high or low for that, because this is going to get hooked up immediately.
I found, you know, a commercial guy hooked me up. He said, just reel it like 6, 12 inches off the bottom and jig it there.
Yeah, you could bounce it, but it's this kind of rig is going to, no matter what, catch weed after a while. You know, when it's a weedy day, seaweed day out, I call it a day. No. We've had some days that you just get bales and bales of seaweed in the bay. It's like you can't do nothing about it. You know, here's clips. People use paper clips to change their bucktails right away. Some people don't tie them directly, so you could go up with the weight instead of snapping your line. This is a light inshore bait casting bucktailer. Half ounce on here. And it's got the bait. When it's got bait, it goes. It's very light. And you're going to just bounce that. Slow action just to bring it across. Nothing too crazy. You're just going to want to keep it fluttering off the bottom. But like I said, ultra light. Look at this tip. Ultra light. You'll feel anything pick it up.
Kenny, how many pound tests per inch? 15?
This got 15.
15.
I do 15 on all my ultralights. Inside, even outside.
And what do you do out in the ocean?
20.
What?
20. I don't go up because I fish with the drag. I fish with the drag. So this is another outside pole. Inside, outside, more for outside. This rig would be either, the way I have this set up, would be a stinger rig with 2 hooks or a single bait holder with a single gulp on a high current day. So when you're fishing heavy current and the wind is ripping, my rule is to drop down to a single rig and give it a little more lead, because you take half the resistance off of your line and rig if you go down to a single bait, compared to people still putting double baits and globs. That's why, oh, I've got a 10-ounce sinker, I can't hold bottom. I got a 12-ounce sinker, I can't hold bottom. Meanwhile, I'm on the side holding with a 6 to an 8. And they're wondering, what are you doing? Even tile fishing, I do the same thing. Out there, you can have heavy current. Guys don't know, take one of your hooks off. Single bait. Make it look pretty. 1, 2 pieces of bait, nothing too, and it takes your resistance 50% right off. So now you're holding bottom with an 8 or a 10, not a 14. You know, and you're not scoping out a million miles. This one too is a great rig. This pole, I happen to, believe it or not, 15-pound test. I fought over 100-pound shark Saturday for a half hour.
I was right next to him.
Fucking fought this shark. He picked it up. I had a bucktail on here. Spooled this reel 100 yards. Got him back to the boat. Spooled it another 100 yards. Fought that fish until we seen it. That's how we knew it was a shark. I thought it was a striper or a tuna. And then he just didn't want to come up until I started manhandling him. And I popped the line eventually. But 15-pound test, this chaos rod. Fucking, it's not like bar panties.
I'll break your rod. He would still be trying to fight him, except he was taking away our fluke.
If I would have caught that, I would have got that shark in.
Yeah, but he was taking too long.
It was just taking too long of a day. But you got to guarantee yourself good fish. You got to work for them. You want good fish, you got to work for them. I fish big bait. I got skunked on fluke for a keeper Saturday. But now I'm fishing strips like this with bait like this, where the other guys, they're getting keepers, but they're fishing bait like this. You know, I'm taking the good with the bad. I mean, if you wreck fish, here's your wreck. A lot of people are going to go over the wreck. They lose their rigs. You want to stay on the outside of that wreck. Wherever the outside, because there is debris all around this wreck. So you don't want to just go, unless you're cod fishing. Cod fishing, you want to go directly over that wreck. Sea bass fishing, you want to go directly over that wreck. But you don't want to drift it. You want to anchor on top of it. And but when you're fluking, I've caught in some big doormats on the edges of these wrecks. Just nice and easy, you know. But you got to make sure you got the right drift with that. Pinker showed me how to drift them pretty good. He's a good wreck fisherman and how to get to the sides of the wreck. And you'd be surprised what's laying on the edge of those wrecks. Same thing with your reef fishing. Here's your lower, gets higher, gets higher, gets higher. And these fish are just laying on these flats with chasing the bait. And when you find a good area, you got to learn how to short drift it as a captain. And as the fisherman, you got to learn how to catch it and be ready. So if you ever fish with the Corazon, he's a short drift guy. When he puts you on fish and he says, okay, lines up, go over that run again. They just hooked a bunch of fish. I had great fishing on him, but he's a short drift fisherman. He ain't a long drift. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, boom, 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 pull it up, go over that reef, pick it out, work the side, work the back. You know, this is how you guys, this is that long rig I was telling you about. That's a 12-inch leader, 3-way, 2 to 3 feet. You could use a stinger hook, 2 hooks for a squid, or you could go with your high-low chicken rig. You could either go single hooks with no colors and just put gulp on it, or you could put poison tails, you could put skin, but that's minimum how you're going to want to drift it on an angle. And here's your different rigs. 6-hole bait holders, you can put teasers on it, 6-hole bait holder. Now here's another trick that people don't realize and know about. This is called the breakaway knot barrel. You put a small barrel underneath your rig and you tie a little lighter fluorocarbon or leader and you put the sinker there. Now when you're wreck fishing or reef fishing, you get stuck majority of the time with your sinker. So a lot of people don't realize that, and now they lose their whole rig. That's not how you want to do it. You know, I tell you this, and just think about this attached to a barrel. There's your bottom, that goes to your sinker. So basically we're going to put that through here. If it goes through.
Yeah, the big sinker.
These are my tile fish sinkers.
It hurts. He did it.
So now, the simple breakaway knot that a lot of people don't realize is just take your leader and go under and make a knot. A simple knot close to your sinker, like that, is a breakaway knot. Now, that breakaway knot goes up to your barrel. Your barrel is going to be right underneath your rig.
Wow.
Breakaway. You don't even know it. And when you got your pole and it's stuck, pop. Now what I do is I have extra sinkers tied with the breakaway already. Come up and I just tie it right to the barrel. So you're not out of the water for more than 2 minutes anyway. You know, it works. I've seen so many guys lose rigs because they don't do that and they're 10 minutes fucking around getting rigged. Sorry with the cursing.
Hey Kenny, you know, fishing in like out east, Montauk has been really off this year. I'm sure you appreciate that.
So Montauk,
and you know, initially here, also in Freeport, you know, the season was extended much more into the bays, and the fish didn't seem to want to move offshore.
problem is El Nino and the cold water temperatures. So for some reason, we have extremely cold water outside still, especially Montauk as you go more east. 60, 61 degrees, 90 feet of water. You go out here, 70 feet of water, it's 62 degrees. You gotta find the ebb where the water break is. So now if you go west, for the last 3 weeks, they've been catching nice fish in between because it's a lot warmer down that way. These fish are staying inside because of the season. We worked our way back and hit the Cartwright last week. All we caught was ling on the drop. 95 feet of water. Ice cold. When I was taking these fish off, freezing. We kept working our way in, 49, 59, 69, 70 feet, 80 feet like that. Once we got down to like 60, 55, the water warmed up. You felt the difference in your sinker. You felt the difference in your bait. And we started catching more fish. Outside, mackerel, whiting, ling. That's all we were getting. Ice cold fish. with the fish. It's crazy. So a lot of these fish, as we got closer and closer to the lighthouse and the radar tower, we picked more fish. But they're very legitimate, like he said. They just ain't getting up this year. They're just not coming alive. You know, you hear one good day, 2 bad days. One good day, 2 bad days. And with this weather pattern, it's horrible. You get all these low pressure systems constantly coming through, and it's a problem. It's FLUKE don't like women. They shut down immediately.
You're in trouble now, man. You know nothing?
No, I don't mean it that way, but they're just like so finicky.
Let me ask you this. You're out fishing, all these different circumstances, all these different techniques. When you get a bite, what's the first thing you do?
I bow to them.
Bow?
I bow to them.
Quote, bow to the cow.
Bow to the cow. You get a good bite, you want to bow down to them. Take the resistance off of it. See if you could let him take that bite again. Wait for that second bite. Just go to set the hook. If you miss him...
So you bow to the cow, but you don't, do you drop back?
I drop back.
You do.
Yeah, because I'm a high fluker too. I like to bring my, you know, bucktail high, sideways. I can swing it in. My rods are 7.76. They're not short rods, so I got a lot of control over that.
Does it depend if you're fishing sand bottom or structure?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing. You get a bite, these FLUKE a lot of times short bite, especially if you're using long strips or whole squid. So the first initial bite, he's hanging on the end. You want to give him a second to inhale that. You know, and a lot of times, you'll take it out of his mouth, he'll come right back to it, as long as you keep the action going.
So by drop back, you're bowing to the cow, but are you free spooling it back?
I free spool all day. I don't lock my reel, because the minute he hits, I take my finger off the reel, and I give him that line. I take the resistance off of it, so you don't feel that tension. A big fish is smart fish. That's how they're big fish. So if you're gonna hold your thing locked up and you're just bounce it, you get that bite, you see those guys that are just going crazy? There you go, goodbye. A big fish is gonna tap it, lay on it, hit it with its tail. You'd be surprised how these smarter fish are, because they're so big. They'll lay on top of your bait and you won't even know it. That's the fish that you think you got and you hooked, and then all of a sudden he comes off. So he never had it in his mouth 90% of the time. You body hooked him, and it's just barely holding on to his body, and all of a sudden you're coming up 2-3 cranks, he's gone. You never had that fish in his mouth. Those fish come and they lay on that bait. They'll circle that bait, hit it with their tail. They like a smart FLUKE will stun their bait before they inhale their bait. You know, I've had FLUKE chase my bait 5-6 times before he actually takes it in his mouth.
So now I heard you talk before, but now, you know, you go ahead and you drop back, bow to the cow, drop back, whatever you think is appropriate in the circumstance. Now you're going to lock up the reel and you're going to set the hook. Talk about that.
So the way I set a hook is my drag is only on 30%. I'm a very heavy hook setter. I don't just pick up and start reeling. I impale that hook. My drag compensates for that fish. So in other words, as I go to set that hook on that fish, my drag is going to pull out. Just enough where it's not going to break him, but it's going to impale it. Now, when I talk about a hook set, I'm talking about a hook set. Most guys just pick it up and start reeling. Not with the fish that we're looking for. Those jaws are 1/2 inch sometimes, to 1/4 of an inch of bone. You know, I put that hook into that bone sometimes. Like, Jimmy will tell you, how hard do I set those hooks?
Swing for the fences.
I swing for the fences. But my drag will compensate for that hook set. It won't snap it. My drag's gonna let out when that fish is hooked. Plus, I found when you hook a really big fish, once they realize they're hooked, they're gonna run. If you have a super tight drag, they break it. They break it immediately. I've had fish that I hook set a lot, especially a lot of my double digits. Once they realize they will hook, 6, 8 feet, you got to turn their head. Then you gradually start tightening your drag. You know, you got to let that drag loose enough where when he picks up that initial bite, he's able to run a little bit after you set that hook. Because they're going to run. You're not talking about a little fluke now. Big fluke have a lot of power. And you know that. You've caught them. With me in Nantucket. You see what Nantucket's like. Marian's seen firsthand what Nantucket could be like. Big fish all day.
You only have 5 pounds of drag, like you say a third?
I say a third of your, where it could go all the way tight. So my reel's got anywhere from 18 to 33 pound drag. I keep it on 10 pounds, 12 pounds, because I don't want it to, plus I'm also fishing 20 pound test, you know, 15 pound test braid. And I use about 6 to 8 feet of shock leader on my reels. Here's a knot that they call a no-name knot. A lot of people like using different knots. Can you see the fluorocarbon to the braid? Can you see a knot there? You can't even see that knot. This is called a Chinese finger knot. It's called a no-name knot. It actually wraps around the fluorocarbon, tightens up like a Chinese finger knot, and it goes through your guides like glass. And it's super strong. Super strong. I have an email for YouTube that I could send this to somebody if they want to learn this knot. It's not an easy knot to learn, but if you master this knot for your shock leader, it's one of the best knots I ever used.
Okay, put it on the website.
I could. It takes a little practice, but let me tell you, this goes through your guides. I flipped this 40 yards and right through the guides. Not like those guys that double wrap the mono and then they wrap and it gets stuck in your line, it gets stuck in your bait. This doesn't get stuck. Yeah, it doesn't get stuck. Well, guys use different knots like that. I've seen so many different, you know, and I laugh because I see what they go through. We were on Dave's boat one day in the canyon, and the guy tied a uni knot, and I won't mention the name. He got a nice tuna on, and as he's using the electric reel, that knot came up to the electric reel and got stuck. You ought to see us trying to get this tuna in by hand. I almost lost my fingers because when I pulled this tuna in by the mono, he came close to the bone. It was stuck on the level one because it was just such a big knot from the mono to the braid.
Well, you wear gloves.
So, that, huh? Yeah. He's mad at everybody because they got that from Saul.
60.
Kenny
Donowsky.
No, it was Undy actually.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
It was Undy. So, I don't know if you want to come up and ask some questions about things.
Danielle would know.
I've never seen a fish with a ball on the bottom for a week.
Because where we're fishing is called a wreck. Where you're fishing all heavy structure.
When Derek asked me for names, I gave him yours.
No, well.
1 ounce, 8 ounce balls. You can stick them in.
You're talking about these balls right here.
Yeah.
Okay. They're good and they're no good. Problem is with a ball, and I've used a lot of them and I can't to stay away from them. As you're using this ball, what does a ball do? Like literally, what does a ball do?
It rolls.
And that's what it's doing constantly as you're jigging. It's going that way, it's going that way. Your presentation is lost.
Okay.
That's why I stay away from them. I learned to stay away from them. Plus, there's a hook on them most of the time.
Yeah.
That's a rig killer. Anything on the bottom, right away you're hooked. So now the correct ball to use, and now this is a jigging ball, that your hook stays up and there's your hook, there's your line. Another strong knot that I love to use is your regular tri-lead knot. Super strong, doesn't break. You go through it once, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times more than enough. You're going to want to come through that hole here. Now you see my finger? You're going to bring that through the top of that. Wet it. Any knot you tie, you want to wet. You're not breaking that knot now. And your extra, you always want to get rid of that extra. Now, where's that hook? It's not like your common ball jig where the hook's all over the place. You see the difference there? That hook is not moving. And this is a very good gulp rig. So something like this is your perfect gulp on the bottom. And then you're going to want to put a dropper loop. You wet it, you come over, you do a few twists.
You put 2 more hooks?
One. Do you know how to tie a dropper, anybody? Come through. Same thing, you want to wet it. There you go. Now you're going to put a feather here. You can put a regular octopus hook. I like to put a gulp up here. So I would put a 6-0 bait holder with a feather. Or a plain hook with just a gulp with no bait. Big attractor. So now there's your hook on top and there's your bottom jig and you're bouncing. And there it goes. You follow what I'm saying here? This is like your dynamic bucktail rig. Same thing as bucktailing. But this is a ball jig. Like you were asking about. It's not a bucktail. This is straight for like gulp with a piece of strip.
What pound test do you usually use?
I usually, if I'm in the ocean, I stick with 40 fluorocarbon. If I'm in the bay, 20 to 25. Because you got to compensate for the structure in the ocean, especially like Montauk area. 20 pound and 25 pound fluorocarbon gets cut immediately. You're losing it. You're losing it. Any little nicks, at least the 40 pound has a little abrasion resistance. You know, here's my bucktail rig on a bucktail rod. This is a Sandale Green Spro. The way to do this, people snap jig it. So you're going to kind of go on an angle, you're going to want to snap jig it. This way you don't get stuck.
What do you mean by snap jigging?
So my friend Gary is a very good snap jigger. So when you're on an angle, snap jig, snap jig, snap jig. Pop, pop, let it go down, let it go down. You know, another option is you can stay here and just let it rattle depending on the current. See how that's walking? You walk the dog. Just walk the dog across the bottom. You know, and like I said, this, and that's just an easy cast. I wing this 40, 50 yards. Same thing. Good backbone, light tip. Good hook setter. Same thing with my drag. I can pull my drag. A lot of guys don't realize that. You should be able to pull your drag just enough where if you get a big fish on, it's not going to snap your line.
Then you tighten it up again, right?
As you compensate for that fish and you feel his strength, you'll tighten up a little bit. But the big fluke take runs. Boy, you get him close to that boat, all of a sudden he turns his head, he shoots down 8 feet. That's how you know you got a good fish on. If you don't get a run, he's under 10 pounds, under 8 pounds. After that, you get a good run, he's over 8. Easily. You know what I'm talking about, Joe. You know, you've had those runs where you're getting them up.
Kenny, one question. Could you talk a little bit about color? Like, for instance, do you use certain colors of gulp to match the hatch?
It depends on the day. I've changed my rig 6 or 7 times throughout the day. For a while, I'm getting them on chicken rigs. Next thing you know, 2 hours later, they're not biting us no more. So I went to a Spro. I'm getting them on Spros. Next thing you know, I'm using Smiley Bills on a chicken rig. High lows, but with a half ounce, not a quarter ounce. All of a sudden, that bite stops biting. Color, usually white is the go-to for everybody. I found bigger fish on a dark green, like that, where is it? Right here. This sand eel right here got me 11.5 pound fish at the lighthouse. We were drifting almost 2 knots. I had a 12-ounce sinker with a 1 ounce sand eel hanging off of my dropper. So it was like just swimming, and this fish tanked me. But like green, I noticed, even with the fluke strip, a lot of people like white. I like using the brown. I find the bigger fish like the brown. Or I use the white and brown together. And I'll put a piece of squid in the middle of that. So, to make it enticing. Now these strips are like that long. You got a white side, a brown side, you got a piece of squid right in the middle of them, and you're just letting that flow through the water, nice and easy. A couple of spearing, you know, but like some people don't like using squid. I personally don't use squid a lot. They attract garbage fish. So I stick with the skins. I try to use the biggest spearing sand eels I could. You kind of stay away from all these rat sea bass and porgies and stuff. Once you put squid, clam on, anything like that, you're attracting everything. They're like flock to it. So people wonder, why are you catching any sea bass? Why are you catching any shorts? Because I'm not using what the squid and everybody else is using. I stay away from it. You know, sometimes the bite might only be squid, but I like to use a whole squid. So I have a rig that I tie with a whole squid rig, and this is my go-to when I fish a whole squid. And everybody here, I'll give you a little secret. Bob Pandy's my witness. How many fish did I catch that day on whole squid on your boat? 6 or 7 keepers, yes, right in a row. Boom, 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 boom.
Who caught the big one?
That was the tournament. I told him where to go.
Mr. Pandy.
I gave him those fucking numbers, excuse me.
Thank you, Kenny.
Just right here.
Let him finish this one then.
Let me just finish this up.
Yeah,
this is your whole squid rig. This is going to go through his mantle. This is going to go right through the bottom of the mantle, and then you're going to want to bring that through his side of his eyes. This is going to stop that squid from balling on you. So after you get that squid set up, you're going to slide this over his mantle. And this is going to break the resistance on that water, so that squid ain't balling. And there you go. Now, this guy is fluttering 12 inches off the bottom and just swimming nice and easy. And nice, easy taps. And I use a 2 4-ounce sinker with this, light, just so it stays on bottom. The hits that I get immediately on this is crazy. I use this rig in Nantucket, inside by Nantucket Island. I went through 2 boxes of squid in a half hour. That's how many fish I caught. Every time I went down, it took 1 minute to get, boom. Holy shit, a whole squid. Sick fishing, sick fishing.
Is there any final questions for Kenny before we go fire? Okay, so we're gonna stop. Okay, is that a hand or no? Okay. So thank you, Kenny. We appreciate it. Excellent.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do now is Gene's gonna do the lottery.